Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for coming to join us. I'd like to start with a beautiful quote from Father Thomas Merton, his famous epiphany walking down the street in Louisville, Kentucky. And just as an example of when we're in our most aligned with spirit kind of mode of being. And he's walking down the street there one night, likely after having been, mingling with the people of Louisville in that district of town, saying, and he says, then it was as if suddenly I saw the secret beauty of everyone's heart, the depth of their hearts where neither sin or confusion could reach, the core of their reality, the person that each one is in the eyes of the divine. If only they could see themselves as they truly are, if only we could see each other all the time in this way, there would be no more need for war, for hatred, for greed, for cruelty. I suppose the biggest problem would be that we would all just fall down and worship each other. And I think, to the degree that we've got the capacity to really show up wholeheartedly, to be so present and so resonantly attuned with whoever we're with or wherever we are, that we just melt into the field. Our default mechanism in our brain can quiet down and we can just dissolve the sense of separation into a sense of communion and relatedness. We would be in love with each other all the time. But when we flip into fear, when we flip into loneliness, when we flip into anger, our neurological and spiritual and energetic circuits clamp down and we really separate. And
we contract.
In that contraction, we other each other. It's me and you and self-protection and domination and all the crazy stuff that comes out of those toxic emotions and those jammed neural states. So I think, the role of whatever practices that we use, whatever traditions that we are resonant for us to help us learn how to be fully present, learn how to really be attuned empathically to each other, to be able to keep our hearts and minds open to reach out with kind words and helpfulness and radiant light of our true heart of compassion. Those are noble, heroic, and revolutionary acts in these crazy times where we're just being pushed in so many ways into anxiety and overwhelm and fear. So we'd just like to explore some of these themes with you. How do you keep your heart and mind open? How do you sit or stand in the fire and maintain some sense of empathic resonance? What questions come to mind to explore with regards to these kinds of noble themes?
Or anything else related to what we've been all exploring today.
Yeah, so feel free to unmute and let your voice be heard. Let's explore together.
Yeah,
Linda.
I've been a Mahayana Buddhist for about 11 years. Finding Buddhism and its practices literally changed my life. But in the environment we're living in right now, we spoke earlier of moral outrage. We spoke of this huge fear as to where our planet, our world, our people, where are we going? And I feel a very strong need to be active in the fight for a worldwide community. But what's motivating that is a lot of anger and outrage, which are emotions that I've spent the last 10 years trying to put a cap on. So I'm in a very, I'm in a place where I'm sort of like a pendulum, from wait a minute, I got to go back, I got to meditate, I got to, calm my mind. And then I pendulum back to this is not acceptable in my worldview. So if anybody has any uh, tips, hints, methods I could look into to try to find a middle way in that pendulum, I would be extremely appreciative. And if I have to keep being a pendulum, I'll also keep being a pendulum. So
That's
thank you.
beautiful. Thank you, Linda. Actually, that what you're expressing is not at all at odds with Mahayana, the Mahayana spirit. It's all about engagement, engaged practice. It's not about secluding ourselves and just hermiting away in some peaceful kind of removed from the intensity, but it's really learning just what you said, how to work with those inner destructive emotions and how to transform that energy. There is underneath that moral outrage is a lot of love. There's a lot of caring. There's a strong resource of powerful, the power to make a difference comes from that caring. So it's more about learning how to work with and transform the part that gets in the way, that contracts, and go to the deeper place. Are you familiar with the practice, or anyone, the practice of Tonglen, taking and sending? Yeah, okay. So that maybe we could even do a little bit of that. Is a key practice for working with our own, transforming our own minds and hearts, and just so we can be in a more open balance. We can work with the true power of that care that expresses itself in the outrage and the anger.
Yeah, let's explore this together. I think, Tonglen practice that comes from the Mahayana tradition is the primary practice for activating and opening the heart to compassion. And there's a quote by Joanna Macy that really kind of frames this. And it's also very much in the spirit of the St. Francis prayer. Where there is injury, let me so pardon. Where there is sadness, joy. Where there is despair, love. All that sense of our capacity to transform. And Joanna has this beautiful quote where she says, "Our sorrow is the other face of love, for we only mourn what we deeply care for. The sorrow, grief, and rage you feel is a measure of your humanity and your evolutionary maturity. As our hearts break open, there will be room for the world to heal." So for a moment, just reach up and touch or sense or feel your heart. Not so much your physical heart, but your spiritual heart, some dimension of you that reaches into the depths of utter purity and invulnerability, rooted in some quantum sacred dimension that can hold it all, that is
so vulnerable that it's invulnerable. Yeah. Because there's no other there.
Yeah, and imagine that as you breathe, you can just tractor beam your anxiety, your fear, your rage, your tension, can just gather that into this holy, sacred, pure, clear, transformational dimension of your heart, where those wavelengths or energies of anxiety or rage are just completely dissolved and resolved, giving rise to an upwelling and an overflowing from the heart of waves of light as loving compassion and comfort that flow back to wherever the pain or the suffering came from.
And that's mounted on the out breath. On the in breath, we're gathering, we're connecting with that, the actual feeling that we have. We're aware of how it lives in our body, the contraction, the pain. We breathe it in with the in breath into this center of this transformational center within us. We're just like turning on a light switch in a dark room, like instantly, it's just dissolved back into the pure potential. And as we breathe out, we send back to ourselves first, whatever would be the healing antidote. If we're angry, just send back some patience or acceptance, love, openness. And it's, don't have to do it all in one breath, just gently breathing, taking, transforming in that little space between the in-breath and the out-breath, and then exhaling, sending back to ourselves, and then beyond ourselves to anyone else who may be feeling similarly as we are. Just whatever it may be helpful in the world, we're just gathering like a great energy transformer, receiving, taking on the in-breath, and then dissolving, resolving, allowing it to just dissolve. Like where does the light go where does the darkness go when the light switch is flicked on? It's kind of like that. It's not hiding anywhere. And then breathing back peace or courage, whatever we need in that moment.
It's as though in this way we can breathe in turbulence and agitation and let it dissolve in our true hearts and radiate peace. Or breathe in confusion and let it dissolve completely and radiate clarity. And sensing ourselves like a cell within the larger body of life, we begin with ourselves, what is oh so personal and embodied for us. But then as we think of a loved one or a friend who's worried, shares the same worries or fears, the same confusions, we can just let our heart reach out to them as we're part of the larger body of life, gather their sadness or fear and radiate our comfort and love to them. And it just expands naturally from one person to a group of people to everyone. As I do this practice at times, I envision just gathering the meanness and the greed out of the hearts and minds of all beings, dissolving that and radiating, and sowing the seeds of love and well-being and helpfulness and kindness in the hearts and minds of all beings. So it's a fathomless practice. It's said that from the moment you catch a glimpse of the potential for you to engage in this kind of transformational practice, that the capacity grows and grows and grows, maybe over lifetimes, until at the moment when the last vestige, last cloud of ignorance dissolves from the mind and we're in the glory of our true awakened state, that all that's left is Tonglen. That an enlightened being is just an entropy transformer. That, one Christian scholar friend once wrote a paper saying, maybe Tonglen was the practice that Jesus did on the cross, gathering the sins of all beings into his ripped open heart, purifying them, and dedicating the energy of his compassion born from suffering for the salvation and the blessings of all beings for eons to come. So it's profound practice. I'll put in the chat some links where you can find your way to some more information on Tonglen and some other elements that are useful. So you can explore those. So grab those in the chat in a minute.
Yeah, and one wonderful variation that for some people is easier to do or just is more comfortable for them as you're connecting with the difficult emotions, the pain or the suffering, that you can also, as another alternative to doing having the transformation happen within your heart center, within your heart chakra, you could invoke the presence of a great spiritual being, whoever you feel a connection with behind you, or just a presence of light and love and compassion kind of behind you, like they have your back. And as you breathe in that pain or suffering that you're mindful of, that you're connecting with, that you're really actually in touch with, you breathe it into your heart, but out through kind of like a flow through tea bag into their heart. They receive it and they know what to do with that. They know how to transform it. And then they send that love back through you and, to you, through you and on. It's a nice, another option. Even some days that might work better for one. But it's really an anti-pendulum practice because you don't have to go somewhere else you don't have to turn your back on that suffering. You can work with it, you can stay connected and engaged and affirm your capacity to transform, which is the essence of the great vehicle. Mahayana means universal vehicle. You know, it's not only about ourselves, it's for everyone. Okay. So that's a prime practice.
Yeah. Other reflections or questions? Thank you for activating that opportunity, Linda.
And you can do it anywhere. Walking,
yeah,
sitting,
it's beautiful
driving,
practice for watching the news or reading the news to just gather the
that's a graduate level.
Or the debates. Yeah.
Yeah. And
other voices.
I first of all want to just thank you for the opportunity to be in this circle. I imagine a circle.
Yes.
You know, I'm always reminded in my own practice to imagine the circle, because then there's no figurehead. Everyone has a direct view of center. And so that is a practice that is part of my daily reflection, is to imagine things in circle rather than in squares or boxes or so on. We just finished Thanksgiving in Canada, and there is a lot to be grateful for. And also when the mind chatter starts, I affirm what I want rather than what maybe the masses are thinking or feeling, but to focus on what I can do. And so one that I've been using is God trumps everything. So anytime the mind, God trumps everything, because it is definitely in our world view right now. So what can I do about that? Well, I can have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, which is, I love Freddie Mercury from Queen, and he really has been a mentor in my life since I first heard his music, because of the joy that he got from just sending out into the world a message many times of hope and peace and keeping ourselves alive and all of those things. So, and I also imagine holding hands together around the world and praying together. Those are things that don't put me from whelm into overwhelm, because I think a lot of our world lives in whelm most of the time, and then moving to overwhelm, it's just way too much. So those are a few things. Music, and also getting into nature every day. The trees and the beauty that is given to me through that is just, so those are a few things.
Thank you.
Those are such important practices, and for balance, and skills to know that we have these options to go to generate. It's very much in the same spirit of Tonglen. It's like we can go this way, or we can generate gratitude. We can generate the joy and rejoicing about all the kindness and the wonderful things that are happening. Thank you for reminding us of all.
We have one more minute, I think, Joel.
Okay, just very briefly, I put in the chat also our email if anyone wants to stay in touch. We've been hosting 4 meditations a week, and you'd all be welcome to join in. So copy that, send us a note if you'd like to. Any other voices that want to be heard in the short moments we have?
I just say gratitude to both of you for being here.
So as we're coming to completion here, I just invite us all just to gather all the goodness and the inspiration of our time together into our hearts, into our little drop, and let it just ripple out as waves of blessings to all of us here in this little circle, and then into all the other circles we're a part of, reaching to all beings everywhere.
Just reach out for a moment and make that circle.
Yes,
with
and
our
breathe
hands.
together.
Just connect and affirm the circle that's always present for us to invoke and be part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel and Michelle. Thank you both.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Bless you and bless your work for all the good work you're doing in the world.